Every level of God-tier physiques explained. Level 1, the foundations, 1930s to 1950s, marks the origin of the modern bodybuilding ideal, a period defined by raw discipline, minimal science, and pure physical artistry. Pioneers like Eugen Sandow, often called the father of modern bodybuilding, set the standard for what strength and proportion should look like. His physique wasn't about mass or aggression, it was about balance and control, the kind of symmetry seen in Greek statues brought to life. Then came John Grimek, a powerhouse who blurred the line between athlete and artist. Competing in the 1940s, he won both Mr. America and Mr. Universe, feats that no one had accomplished before. Grimek's combination of aesthetic flow and genuine strength inspired generations. He could outlift Olympic weightlifters, yet still look carved by a sculptor's hand. The torch passed to Steve Reeves, whose physique symbolized physical perfection for millions. His broad shoulders, narrow waist, and graceful proportions made him a movie icon and global ambassador of fitness. Reeves's performances in Hercules and other films helped transform bodybuilding from a niche pursuit into mainstream inspiration. This era was the foundation of God-tier physiques, built on discipline, not chemistry, artistry, not algorithms. It was the time when the human body was celebrated as a masterpiece of symmetry and effort, setting the stage for every level of greatness that would follow. Level 2, the golden ratio, 1960s to 1970s, defined bodybuilding's most artistic and mathematically precise era. This was the time when muscle met proportion, and the human body was sculpted according to symmetry, balance, and flow. The champions of this period, Frank Zane, Serge Nubret, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, turned the sport into an art form. Frank Zane, who won Mr. Olympia in 1977, 1978, and 1979, embodied the golden ratio concept, the perfect visual balance between shoulders, waist, and limbs. His approach was scientific. Every rep, calorie, and pose was calculated to enhance aesthetics, not just size. Serge Nubret, competing through the late 1960s and 1970s, brought elegant lines, smooth muscle, and posing that looked choreographed rather than mechanical. He made the human physique appear fluid, almost cinematic. Then came Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose rise in the 1970s transformed bodybuilding into global entertainment. Winning his first Mr. Olympia title in 1970, Arnold fused size, charisma, and proportion, creating a silhouette that defined the modern ideal. The 1977 film Pumping Iron immortalized this era, showing bodybuilding as both theater and philosophy. Level 2 was when beauty ruled the stage, when the perfect ratio between power and grace became the measure of God tier. It was the decade that turned bodybuilding into visual perfection. Level 3, the mass shift, 1980s, marked a turning point in bodybuilding history, when size began to challenge symmetry as the ultimate goal. The decade brought with it a new generation of athletes like Lee Haney, Rich Gaspari, and Samir Banout, who elevated the standard of muscularity while keeping a disciplined eye on proportion. Lee Haney became the era's defining champion, winning 8 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 1984 to 1991, a record that stood unmatched for over a decade. His physique combined enormous volume with clean, balanced lines, proving that extreme mass could still look refined. Haney's training philosophy, rooted in power and precision, became the blueprint for athletes chasing both aesthetics and dominance. Rich Gaspari, the 1980s runner-up powerhouse, introduced a new kind of conditioning, paper-thin skin, and detailed muscle separation that shocked judges and fans alike. His look changed how the world viewed competition-ready physiques. Samir Banout, the 1983 Mr. Olympia, brought graceful posing and razor-sharp muscle definition, showing that art still had a place in a growing world of mass. The 1980s were a balance between beauty and might, the last decade before bodybuilding crossed into the extreme. Level 3 proved that God tier was evolving, not just about harmony anymore, but the power to command a stage through sheer presence. Level 4, the Freak Awakening, 1990s, was the decade that shattered every physical limit known to bodybuilding. This was the rise of the era's giants: Dorian Yates, Flex Wheeler, and Kevin Levrone, men who transformed the sport from art into raw biological shock. The 1990s introduced an entirely new look: extreme mass, grainy conditioning, and brutal density that made even the greats of the past look small. Dorian Yates dominated this period, winning 6 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 1992 to 1997. His physique was unlike anything ever seen, a back that looked carved from stone, muscle hardness so dense it redefined the standard of conditioning. His training method, high-intensity training, HIT, focused on short, maximum effort sessions that produced unbelievable results. Flex Wheeler, known as the Sultan of Symmetry, brought the counterbalance, incredible shape, flow, and genetics so refined that even Arnold Schwarzenegger called him one of the most perfect physiques ever. Kevin Levrone combined massive size with clean lines, showing up show after show with almost instant conditioning. This was the decade where bodybuilding crossed into the extraordinary, where men didn't just look powerful, they looked unreal. Level 4 was the birth of the freak era, when god-tier physiques no longer resembled mortals, but living, breathing superhumans. Level 5, the monster reign, 2000s, pushed bodybuilding into a new dimension of size and intensity. This was the decade when human limits were truly tested, led by Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, and Marcus Rule, whose physiques redefined what mass could mean. The stage became a showcase for physical dominance so overwhelming that it stunned audiences worldwide. Ronnie Coleman ruled this era with 8 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 1998 to 2005, tying Lee Haney's record but eclipsing him in sheer magnitude. Weighing nearly 300 pounds on stage, Coleman combined freakish size with shocking conditioning, veins, detail, and striations visible even at his enormous scale. His strength matched his look. 800-pound squats and deadlifts made him the most powerful Mr. Olympia ever. Jay Cutler emerged as his greatest rival, bringing width and density to match Coleman's reign. Their battles through the early 2000s defined a generation, 2 mass monsters trading victories in a decade obsessed with size. Marcus Rule, though never Mr. Olympia, became a fan favorite for his jaw-dropping bulk and cartoon-like proportions. The 2000s represented bodybuilding's physical peak, when physiques stopped looking athletic and became colossal. Level 5 is remembered as the decade when the god-tier ideal evolved into something almost divine, larger than life, unmatched in strength, and forever etched in the mythology of muscle. Level 6, the precision era, 2010s, marked bodybuilding's return to refinement after 2 decades of size wars. The new icons, Phil Heath, Kai Greene, and Sean Roden, brought a different kind of perfection to the stage. Rounded muscle bellies, flawless symmetry, and aesthetic details sculpted with surgical precision. The goal was no longer to be the biggest. It was to look engineered, balanced, and impossibly complete from every angle. Phil Heath, nicknamed The Gift, dominated the decade with 7 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles from 2011 to 2017. His physique was a marvel of modern development. Full, 3-dimensional muscle combined with crisp separation and razor conditioning. Every muscle flowed perfectly into the next, giving him a near-digital look under the lights. Kai Greene brought soul and creativity to competition, turning posing into performance art and transforming the stage into a story of struggle, emotion, and control. His rivalry with Heath became one of the most intense in bodybuilding history. Sean Roden's 2018 victory broke Phil's streak, signaling the sport's shifting values, from dominance to beauty. The 2010s were defined by precision, not just power. Athletes trained smarter, recovered better, and analyzed every detail of presentation. Level 6 represents bodybuilding's evolution into true craftsmanship. God-tier physiques designed with intent, symmetry, and near-perfect execution. Level 7, the Hybrid Gods, 2020s until now, represents the most advanced evolution of bodybuilding, a fusion of every era before it. The modern athlete must combine the massive scale of the 2000s, the precision of the 2000s and 10s, and the aesthetics of the 1970s, all in one complete physique. The champions of this age, Big Ramy, Hadi Choopan, and Derek Lunsford, embody this final synthesis of size, symmetry, and refinement. Big Ramy stunned the world by winning the Mr. Olympia titles in 2020 and 2021, bringing over 300 pounds of sculpted muscle to the stage, a mass monster with surprising balance and conditioning. Hadi Choopan, the Persian Wolf, followed with victories in 2022 and 2023, setting new standards for sharpness, density, and stage presence. His physique represents absolute control, every fiber visible, every detail perfected. Then came Derek Lunsford, the first man to win both the 212 Olympia and Open Mr. Olympia, proving that hybrid physiques, aesthetic yet enormous, are the future of the sport. In this era, technology drives evolution. Precise nutrition, peptide science, recovery analytics, and year-round conditioning have turned bodybuilding into performance engineering. Level 7 is the age of complete transformation, the birth of the hybrid god-tier physique, a perfect fusion of mass, artistry, and science.